everyone. Let me ask you a question. When's the last time you just felt disoriented? You felt life was it was chaotic. It was out of control. It was almost like bedlam happening in your world. And how did you feel at that point? Did you feel like you needed help during those phases? Did you feel like you needed someone to come to your rescue? Did you feel like this was like a flood coming over you, that you were drowning in many respects? And it was just like, man, it was just pushing you down to the point to where you're going, man, I don't know if I'm ever going to get my head above water again. You've ever been there? That disorientation? And many times it causes a lack of faith in our lives. Okay, so here's what I want to do this week and next week. I want to take you along on a journey with Jesus. And we're going to get in a boat with Jesus with his disciples on the Sea of Galilee, and we're going to go over to the other side of the Sea of Galilee. So that's what we're going to do for the next 2 weeks. And the sea, the water for the Israelites, those disciples, this is not good for them. They don't really like the water, and especially going out at night, which they do in the evening, to go to the other side of the Sea of Galilee. This is just not something they did, nor is this something they appreciated, was this water. And I'll tell you why. I mean, you go all the way back to just Genesis chapter 1, verse 2. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. In that second verse, and the earth was formless and empty. And darkness was over the surface of the deep. And the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And then, that was the chaos, but then the blessing of that is that God created. And he created is a beautiful garden, and gave man to actually tend it. And out of that garden flowed a river that turned into 4 rivers that watered the face of the earth. Okay? And so we know that there was blessing that came out of this. So there's chaos that began in water, and then there was blessing that came out of that as well. And then what happens next? You have the flood. You have the flood in which the whole face of the earth is destroyed. Everybody drowns in water. It is judgment. It is seen as judgment. Water is seen as judgment for the Israelites. Of course it would be. And you see that in the next story, in that you see Pharaoh. And the Israelites, as they're in captivity, they're being released. And what are they doing? They're going through the Red Sea. The waters are standing up like this. And what do they see? As soon as they get the last person on dry land, and all of Pharaoh's armies are there, and what happens? It just all comes back on there as judgment. As judgment. The floods covered them, and they went down into the depths like a stone. Like a stone. So in the Bible, the flooding waters are usually a sign of judgment. It's a tool that God uses. And this sticks into the Israelites' mind. It sticks into a Jewish mind. Because anybody that's opposed to God, that flood becomes that kind of symbol of judgment. And by the way, Jews were not seafarers. They were not seafarers. They were desert nomads. I mean, how long was Moses in the desert, in the wilderness? He was there 40 years before he actually God called him. He's 80 at that time. Goes when he's 40. He's 40 years. He's 80. He's been there for 40 years. He is desert. He is a wilderness person. The people of Israel are wilderness individuals. They rarely controlled the coast at all. And so we see this, and we see Abraham as a shepherd in the desert. And you also see David, who is a shepherd in the wilderness. They are not water people. They're not water people. They were not at home with water, because water was such a judgment, as a sign of judgment upon people, that drowning that might happen. So water is often something of desperation and death. That's what it's seen as. Here's a couple of Psalms to kind of give us that idea. In Psalm 69, verses 1 and 2. Save me, O God, for the waters have come up to my neck. I sink in the miry depths where there is no foothold. I have come into the deep waters. The floods engulf me. Look at the next verse. Rescue me from the mire. Do not let me sink. Deliver me from those who hate me, from the deep waters. Do not let the floodwaters engulf me, or the depths swallow me up, or the pit close its mouth over me. Okay, so my brother and I, we didn't really know how to swim, even at 4th grade. We didn't have much water in our little town of Tipton when we were growing up, and it wasn't something that we just did. And we went to forestry camp in the 4th grade, and still didn't know how to swim, and we went to Beavers Bend State Park to do that. And when we got there, there was a kind of a natural lake, an area that we could swim in. And I remember us staying on the other side of the ropes and not getting on the other side. But my brother, of course, he always wanted to go to the next step, and I was always the safe one. So I'm over on this side of the rope, he's on the other side, and he's kind of testing the waters, seeing if he can go out farther. And of course, he gets his hand there and he can go down, and then he releases it. Well, I mean, it goes off quick. And now the next thing I know, he's just flailing, trying to get back. And I'm thinking, I need to save him. So I go after him. And when I grab him and just try to get him, he grabs me, and I go down under with him, and he crawls over me. And finally, we both get back, and we both get to the rope. Water was not our friend that day, and I can sympathize, and I can understand what that meant. That psalm meant right there in Psalm 69, 14-15 on the screen. Yeah, the floodwaters engulf me, and the depths swallow me up, and the pit closes its mouth over me. I hold a deep appreciation, and it's also the reason that my brother and I became lifeguards. Because we didn't want what happened to us to actually happen to other people as well. So let's talk about this adventure that Jesus takes his disciples on. He takes them in a boat across the Sea of Galilee. All right, so I want you to get in the boat. I want you to get in the boat. Even though you might not like water, I want you in the boat. All right, Mark chapter 4, verse 35, we read these words. That day when evening came, he said to his disciples, "Let us go over to the other side." Okay, for the disciples, getting out in a boat wasn't a bad thing, but it was something they didn't go over to the other side. Now, there's a couple of things going on here. They're going to have to go out into deep water. They're going to the other side. Going out to the deep water, I mean, why should we be concerned? I mean, these guys are fishermen. Don't they get on the water all the time? Yes, they do. But when Jesus called Andrew and Peter, where were they? Andrew and Peter, were out in the Sea of Galilee. They were throwing their nets. They were not in a boat. That's what it said. They were not in a boat. They were throwing their nets and catching fish and bringing those fish in. And then he goes on along the Sea of Galilee, and he sees James and John, the sons of Zebedee. And he tells them, Zebedee's in the boat. He said, "Come follow me." He's telling them that because they're not far from the shoreline. They don't want to get out there in the deep. The deep is not where they fish. The deep is not where they go. They don't like the water. Again, they're desert people. They're wilderness people. That's what they know. It's how they know how to survive. And water has always been a sign of chaos. A sign of chaos to them. So they're venturing out into this water, into the deep water in the evening. In the evening. It's turning dark at this time. It's getting down to where it may be even dusk at this time. All this is happening, and they don't want to go to the other side. Because what does that mean? I've got to go over there. That's not where we're supposed to be. That's not where we're supposed to go. Because we know this is a two-part series, two-part lesson here. The first lesson is this, and the second lesson is the place where they go. It's the Decapolis. Look at this verse. It said they went across the lake to the region of the Gerasenes. Well, where exactly is this? I mean, this is the other side of the Sea of Galilee. That's how they determined it. They said it's the other side of the Sea of Galilee. Now, let me give you a couple of maps, okay? Here's the first map. The first map is you're going to see kind of a whole view of Israel. You're going to see the Sea of Galilee on the north side, the Jordan River running down all the way to the Dead Sea. And you can see part of the Dead Sea there. But let me go in with the second image. And you see the second image here. And you see, I want you to look at Bethsaida. Bethsaida, right there on the northeast side of Galilee. This is where James and John, and Andrew, and Peter, and Philip all lived. All of them lived right there in Bethsaida, or at least that's where James and John were fishing. So that's where they all are. This is where they are from, this region. And the other side is a kind of everybody knew where the other side was. For a Jew, the other side was where the Decapolis was. The other side is where the pigs were. The other side is where the prodigal son, the young son, went for riotous living and everywhere. And you're going to see a picture. But before I do that, look at the map again. Go down to look at there and look at Gerasa and Hippus. And right in between there, this would be considered the other side. This would be considered the place of the Decapolis where the heathens are. We don't want to go to the other side, Jesus. There's no way. We need to go on the other side. Okay, here's a picture of me standing right there in between those two towns. Right there, standing between those two towns. If you can, look through the haze of this picture, and you will see the other side of the Sea of Galilee. It's not that big. It's not that big. You can actually see the other side of the Sea of Galilee. Okay, so this is where Jesus is taking his disciples. Do you think there's hesitancy? Because remember last week we said if you even mentioned that you were going to this region, you would be unclean for 7 days. And so their tension is up. We're going to get on a boat in the evening, and we're going to go over there kind of in the night, and we're going over to this other side of the sea. It's not that far where they have to go, but they're going to the other side of the Sea of Galilee. In verse 36, it says, leaving the crowd behind, they took him along just as he was in the boat. There were also other boats with him. Okay, so all these boats that go, Jesus has got his 12 in the boat with him, and here they go. They're going out on the sea. Other boats are coming along with him. Now, that phrase there in the Greek, it says they took him along just as he was. No one really knows what that is in the Greek. In fact, some lexicons just leave it blank. They have no idea. But for the most part, it means to seize. It means to grasp. It means to take. It means to take. And so no one really has a good translation for this. But you see this pushback with the disciples. You see that they don't want to go. They see that it's even. We don't want to go out in the sea. Can you just see Jesus sees them and say, get in the boat? That's what I think happens here. I think Jesus is having to pull them and saying, get in the boat. Because these Jewish boys did not want to go to this region. And how many of us? Does Jesus need to say, get in the boat? Get in the boat. We're going to the other side. We're going to a place that you are afraid of. We're going to a place that you've never been. We're going to a place that you will be uncomfortable with. You will be disoriented. Yeah, there's chaos here. And that fear is paralyzing. It can be paralyzing for us and can be paralyzing for the disciples as well. And should we not get in the boat? Should we not go to places that we do not know? And I can just see him grasping the neck and say, let's go. There's a ministry, there's a mission that we have over there. We see danger. We see reluctance. And Jesus sees an opportunity to make a difference in people's lives. Now remember, this next story of this is the legion that has many demons in him. And that's where it's going in how he says when the pigs are actually going off the cliff, he says that they ask him, those demons ask him, Please do not send us, here is, he begged them repeatedly not to order them to go into the abyss. Understand the water, the Sea of Galilee, the deepness of it and how it was. Whether it's Jewish or whether it was the demons, no one wanted to go into the abyss. No one wanted to go into the darkness. No one wanted to go into the Sea of Galilee. And our fear is sometimes, I don't want to go. I don't want to go either. I don't want to go into the abyss. I don't want to go over there. It's dark. It's not a place I want to be. And our fear is a catalyst sometimes of unfaithfulness, of doubt, and worry. That's what it is. Our fear is a lack of faith. Sure, the sea was seen as a place where the terrible dragon was, the Leviathan. Sure, this was a place that Daniel caused that there were great sea beasts and terror that spread. And this image of the sea as a home of evil and chaos was something that was ingrained in them from the very beginning. And you don't go over there. You don't go out into the deep. This is not where we should be, Jesus. We don't want to go. And while all this is going on, and I know I'm getting a little ahead of myself, I haven't read it yet, but while all this is going on, what's Jesus doing? Jesus is asleep on a boat during a storm. He's asleep on a boat during a storm. Now, how could he sleep during a storm? How in the world could he sleep during the storm? How could he ignore our fears that we have out here on this boat? How could he? Doesn't he care about us? Doesn't he care? Okay, like I said, I'm getting ahead of myself. So let me ask you a question. Where do we see in the story, in the text, of someone sleeping in a boat while a storm is going on the ocean? Where do we see that in the text? You got it? Yeah, it's Jonah. It's Jonah. Jonah's trying to run away, and God said, you're not going to run away. I'll bring chaos to your life. I'm going to make this hard for you. And this is not going to be easy. You're going to come and you're going to do what I asked you to do. And when they throw him off, the sea calms down, and he's in the middle of the ocean. He goes down to the depths, and a big fish grabs him up and takes him. He's in that fish for fish. And he's in that big fish for 3 days before he spit out. And where's he spit out? In Nineveh. Where is that? That's the place of the heathens. It's the place of the heathens. That's where it is. And we see this whole story being told again by Jesus. It's happening exactly with them as well. Okay, so let's go back. Let's read the scriptures, though. In Jonah chapter 1, verse 2, it says this: The word of the Lord came to Jonah, son of Amittai. Go to the great city of Nineveh and preach against it, because its wickedness has come up before me. And so I get the feeling, don't you, that this is kind of a retelling of the story of Jonah. I mean, where's Jonah headed? He's going to Nineveh. Where are they headed? They're going to the other side of the Sea of Galilee, where the heathens live. This is called the Decapolis. We'll get to that next week. But God sends Jonah to the bottom of the ocean before salvation is found. And then he's brought up, and he stays in that ocean for 3 days. 3 days before he is spit out on the shore. What does this tell us about the nature of God? What does this tell us about the nature of God and his desire that all men repent and come to a knowledge of the truth? What is it about God's nature that he wants all people, even the heathens, he wants all people to be saved? 1 Timothy 2 verse 4 says he wants all men to be saved and come to a knowledge of the truth. This means he's going to use us. And he wants to use us to move, to help people know the truth about him. He needs us to get away from our fear, to get away from our anxiety, and to move in a way that will be closer to him and to help others to know him. We're to share the message. We're to be that light to the world. And that often means that we have to get on an ocean that is scary and go through a storm, maybe even to get there. And as Jonah's running away, the storm occurs. And as the disciples want to run away, a storm occurs. And it's just chaos at this time. Look at this verse. A furious squall came up, and the waves broke over the boat, so that it was nearly swamped. Jesus was in the stern, sleeping on a cushion. The disciples woke him and said to him, "Teacher, don't you care if we drown?" Teacher, don't you care that we're in danger? Don't you care that we are about to drown? Don't you even care about what's going on in our lives? You're asleep on a boat? This is serious stuff here. Serious stuff. We're in the middle of a major anxiety, of a crisis happening here in our lives, and you don't even care. Our fear, we believe, our fear demands God's attention now, right? I mean, when we are afraid, what's our first question? God, where are you? Where are you? Where are you right now? Where are you? Our fear demands God's attention. And you can see Jesus. Could you see Jesus asleep on that cushion? I just think of him watching all this, and he's asleep, but he's got that one eye half open, kind of watching him, kind of seeing what's going on. Can you just see Jesus maybe do that a couple of times during this? And what does Jesus do? What does Jesus do? Well, he rebukes the winds and the waves. He got up, rebuked the wind, and said to the waves, "Quiet, be still." Then the wind died down, and it was completely calm. And he said to his disciples, "Why are you so afraid? Why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith?" The one who controls the winds and the waves with his voice is asking us the question, why are you so afraid? Deborah can tell you, I hate why questions. I hate them. And the reason I hate why questions are because they make you have to think about what's going on behind the anxiety or the fear or whatever happened or whatever you did. They make you go deeper in yourself about what's going on in your soul, what's going on in your mind, what's going on in your heart. Those why questions go to a place to where you have to reassess who you are as a person. And Jesus is asking the question, why are you so afraid? And that's his question to us, is it not? Why are you so afraid? Why are you so afraid? And why do we lack the faith to move? Why are we afraid to get on the boat and go to the other side? Their response in seeing what Jesus did, in seeing him calm the storm. Now listen, they've seen Jesus do miracles. They've seen him do so many things in people's lives. I mean, the blind see, the deaf hear. He raises people from the dead. And they've seen all of that. And then they see him calm the storm. Calm the storm. And this is what they say. And they were terrified and asked each other, "Who is this? Even the winds and the waves obey him." They're terrified. But I believe they're not terrified just because the winds. They know Jesus has power over people and creation to raise the dead. They understand that. They've seen that going on. They're afraid. They're even more afraid because this is the one in the song that their dads taught them at a very young age. This is in the text. It's in the text. And you can see Jonah, and you can see Zebedee. You can see the sons of four of these guys. You can see the father of four of these guys singing these songs at night. And they get it. They get it. All of them probably had these songs sung to them. And they had sung these songs as well. These psalms they had sung. And this psalm was something that gravitated to them because they were fishermen. They were living the psalm. They were the ones this psalm was actually made for. This time, this place, and they see it and they go, this is a prophecy. We are living this. Listen to it. Others went out on the sea in ships. They were merchants on the mighty waters. They saw the works of the Lord, his wonderful deeds in the deep. For he spoke and stirred up a tempest that lifted high the waves. They mounted up on the heavens. They went down into the depths. In their peril, their courage melted away. They reeled and staggered like drunken men. They were at their wits' end. And then they cried out to the Lord in their trouble, and he brought them out of their distress. He stilled the storm to a whisper. The waves of the sea were hushed. They were glad when it grew calm, and he guided them to their desired haven. Let them give thanks to the Lord for his unfailing love and his wonderful deeds for men. Let them exalt him in the assembly of the people and praise him in the council of the elders. Wow, right? Right? Come on. Come on, they're living this. They understand exactly what is going on. Yes, they're afraid. They're afraid because they understand that we are to exalt him who has done this wonderful deed. That was at the end of that. So that was there for them to understand. And here they are singing this as fishermen. They're understanding that they don't like to be out on the sea. But while they were out there, in the middle of chaos, in the middle of all this fear, in the middle of everything that was going on, Jesus is there. Jesus is there, and he hushed the sea with a word, with a whisper. Many times I believe that we want God to yell at us and help us to say, I'm here for you. I'm here for you during the storm. I'm here for you in the midst of your anxiety. I'm here for you in the chaos. But beyond the chaos is a whisper. It's someone who we can hear in the back whispering to us, I have you. I love you. I will not let you sink. Put your faith in me. Put your faith in me. And if I ask you to go, don't fear. I'm with you. Let's go to the other side. Let's go to the other side. Because there's people who need to be saved. Are you with me? Until next week, I love you all. Blessings.